Why wait to see if you'll get something you like this Valentine's Day when you can go to BlueNile.com and find something you'll love? Whether you're looking to treat yourself to a little winter sparkle or show a galentine how much you appreciate them, Blue Nile offers a wide selection of high-quality designs, expert guidance, and free 30-day returns for the ultimate peace of mind. You can even design your own jewelry. Right now, save up to 50% at BlueNile.com. That's BlueNile.com.
Are negative Google reviews hurting your business? Don't let unfair feedback cost you customers. At Webamax, we specialize in removing false, misleading, and damaging reviews so your online reputation stays strong. Our expert team works quickly and legally to clean up your digital presence, helping you rebuild trust. Visit us on the web at www.gowebamax.com. That's GOWEBIMAX.com, or text us for a free quote at 856-840-8343. Don't let bad reviews define you. Get immediate help from Webamax.
This episode is brought to you by Love Hurts. Kiwi Kwan has had quite a career, from childhood roles in Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom and The Goonies to a recent Academy Award win for Everything Everywhere All at Once. But now Key finally stars as a leading man in the film Love Hurts. Love Hurts is the perfect date night movie with its mix of over-the-top action, comedy, and a ton of heart. Love Hurts. Only at theaters February 7th.
I think you're on mute.
Workday starting to sound the same?
I think you're on mute.
Find something that sounds better for your career on LinkedIn. With LinkedIn Job Collections, you can browse curated collections by relevant industries and benefits, like flex PTO or hybrid workplaces, so you can find the right job for you. Get started at linkedin.com/jobs. Finding where you fit. LinkedIn knows how.
Come meet me at the Musial with Alan and Daniel. We'll talk about the Cardinals all night long. Everyone come gather round, listen to your favorite sound. We'll talk about the Cardinals all night long. We'll talk the games and all the rest, about the team that we love best. We'll talk about the Cardinals all night long. We're gonna talk about the Cardinals all night long.
Good evening and welcome into another edition of Meet Me at Musial. I'm your host, Daniel Shoptaw at C70. No Alan Medlock again tonight as he's still doing those things. So we have, again, a line of superb guests. It's difficult to follow Katie Wu, so I had to go top shelf to bring in the man that puts journalism in regional cable journalism. We're talking to Jim the Cat Hayes. Jim, how are you tonight?
I'm doing great, and I'm going to be like ball game. I'm just going to let it go tonight.
Well, I definitely want to get into some of that, and I'm sure that the ratings will be through the roof if you do. But before we dive into what has been the topic of the week, how has your off season been, and what do you do over the off season to get ready for the next year?
Okay, so to get ready I've been at it a while. I keep up. I keep in touch as best I can. But mostly I'm a chauffeur for my 15-year-old son, which I kind of like doing because I don't get to do that during baseball
Right.
season. So I kind of plug back in. But I'm trying to drop a few pounds, getting ready to go to spring training Monday morning. We have, I think, a 6 a.m. flight. And then it all starts all over again, which is good because, quite frankly, my company had some troubles, but we've weathered the storm, and broadcast will be pretty much the same. I do want to say that, like, we do have streaming now for Cardinals baseball. It's not
Mhm.
everyone's cup of tea, but it's, I'm told, going to be dependable, reliable, and affordable, and available to all the fans who couldn't see their Cardinals before, which, If I could wave a magic wand, I would let everyone watch Cardinal baseball. But the landscape for live sports has changed, and hopefully we've made some adjustments to make some folks happy, and then hopefully the Cardinals can be competitive this season. I know. Listen, I know Cardinal fans are upset, and with reason. Like, I'm not one to get into it with fans, and every fan has a right to see it as he wishes. It's their income. They're the customers. So if they're upset, they have every right to be. I certainly understand why. I wasn't happy about the last two seasons as well, but we have a new season in front of us. And as I said on Twitter, I hope people don't get mad at me, but I'm looking forward to the season because I really like baseball.
Yeah, yeah, it is. It in it's even bad baseball is better than no baseball, and I think we tend to forget that. Come August or late August or early September, and if the team's out of it, like the last, especially 2 years ago, and we're like, well, we just want to get this over with. But I think it doesn't take long. It takes about a couple of weeks into October, and you start realizing how important it is to have it on your screen every day, good or bad.
I'm with you on that. There's nothing like baseball. It's a soothing sport, and let's be honest, if you're watching at home on your TV, you can maybe go make a sandwich or even let the
Hmm.
dog out, and you're going to be okay. You're not going to have to catch up a great deal.
Right. Right. You can, and these days, like you said, with streaming and stuff, you can even pause it if you have to, if you
Yep.
really are afraid of losing out anything. You talked about the turmoil that went along this winter. How stressful was that for you? Because I mean, you've got a reputation, right? I mean that you are the sideline reporter, and it felt to me like no matter who was going to do the broadcast, you were going to be that guy. But that may not have been the case. Was it a stressful thing for you?
So I'm at the age now where I try not to worry about the things I can't control.
Hmm.
Yeah, I never take anything for granted. I wasn't 100% sure I'd be back. I was hoping I'd be back. I think I deserve to be back. But look, there other decisions that have to be made. Maybe they look at other factors, and it's a new beginning for us at FanDuel now, not Bally's.
Hmm.
It's FanDuel, and so I got the word that we're going to be the same except for one guy. But the broadcasts are going to look the same with pre and post, and the Cardinals are on board with that. And I think that some of the tough choices that the company did make to keep us viable going forward will stick, and I think we're going to be okay. And to be honest, the season ahead, there's a lot of question marks. I have them too, but like we both agree, it's good to have baseball back, and we're almost there.
Yeah, and I am one of those that is very excited about the fact that there is the streaming because I really haven't had the chance to watch over the last couple of years, even down here, in Arkansas, being in the market, not being able to stream it through MLB TV. So to be able to have that option now, and be able to have that back on my screen every night, it's great for me. Maybe not so much for the wife, but for me, I think it's going to be a wonderful thing, and I'm looking forward to it.
And it should, because it's baseball, and so there's turmoil from the broadcast,
Mhm.
and we talked about this before we fired it up too. Like, the whole landscape has changed
Right.
for live sports. It's not just the Cardinals. It wasn't just Bally's. Look, there's a lot of things. If I could change, I would. I think it's silly to have some of the games on some other broadcast thing
Mhm.
where you know you're not going to get it for one game, and it's all over
Right.
the place. That's unfortunate, but I think that's behind us, and now it's almost time for baseball.
Yep. Yeah, and as much as I don't like you say, the couple games on Apple or the handful of games on ESPN that you might not be able to watch if you don't have that. The good thing about baseball is there's 162 games, right? And if you miss a handful, 10 maybe on the year because of lack of access, it's not great, but I think you can shake it off. Unless of course Albert Pujols hits 2 home runs and makes 700 on Apple TV, and then I guess it stings a little bit more. But
Well, wait,
um,
wait, wait, because it was worse for me because I was in L.A. and my family had come out there, and I didn't expect them to hit two, so I didn't get us tickets, and
oh yeah,
so we're watching. My son is a huge Cardinal fan, so
hmm
we're watching him do his thing on my phone, streaming at a smash burger in LA. And I gotta admit, like, I've seen a lot of great things. That
yeah,
one makes it more memorable because my son and I were just pinned together watching it on
right.
my phone eating a smash burger. That's pretty good.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, the silver lining of not being at the ball game is to have that memory, for sure. I don't think we've talked since that season. What was it like to have Albert come back? Did you kind of pick up where you left off, or did you have to kind of learn each other again?
So Albert was fine, um, talking and stuff, but there was an edge to him, and there was an edge here
Mhm,
at the end too. Um, and he came back with an edge because he wasn't playing that well, and he was going to come here to kind of platoon and hopefully find it. And what I saw, like I never saw it coming,
mhm.
never. And then there was I forget what number home run it was, but I just remember there was a high fastball at his neck. It was like a 97-mile-an-hour fastball at his neck, and he crushed it. And I was like, okay. And then the next thing you know, he's hitting righties, lefties, it don't matter, and he's crushing everything. It was unlike anything I had ever seen. And to Albert's credit, I had talked to Joe Kelly about what Albert was like in LA, and he said, great, like a coach, always made time for the young players. And he did that in St. Louis too. So he went out in the best way possible.
Yeah, and then has taken that on into managing too. Apparently, he's had quite a run this winter. Do you think he's managing in St. Louis in some form or at some point in time in the future?
I think it's a possibility. I would guess coaching first
Mhm,
before that, but he's putting together a managerial pedigree, so I wouldn't write it off. I think the guy, and I have nothing but praise for Ollie, even though things have
mhm,
not gone well and he takes a lot of heat. But there's another guy out there that I think might be a manager in waiting. It's Skip Schumacher. So it's not like
yeah,
they don't have options. But since I bring up Ollie, there's certain things. Look, I'm not telling anyone how to feel or to change their opinion, but I think it's a narrative out there that Ali lost the team somewhere along the line or the players
mhm,
don't. I'm telling you, that's not true. The players love Ollie. The players love Ollie. Um, there was a lot made of the Tyler O'Neill thing, which
yeah,
Tyler was kind of. I like Tyler, and I wish he was still on the team because I just think his talent was untapped here, and at some point
mhm,
he'll stay healthy and show what he can do. But he wasn't part of the young group. He was kind of
right,
his own thing. And when Ali did that, he lost the team. I didn't hear that from anyone. Some players would tell me some stuff. I didn't hear any of that. And Ali has a chance. He knows it's all on him now with the card, not the cards he wanted to
mhm,
be dealt, but he's got to play with them. And now we'll see what he can do. But the Cardinals down the road, I think, have options of guys they know and guys that are showing what they could do that they could plug in.
yeah. You've been through, I guess, what, 4 managers, right? In your time in St. Louis. Um, I'm sure they all had their strengths and weaknesses, especially when it came to interacting with you. Um, who do you think was the strongest with the media?
Tony, I think because of his resume, right? And because of
Mhm,
his experience. I think, first of all, Tony, for being, Hall of Fame guy, very accessible. He, after games, it became a thing where he would like rip into me or whatever. That was honestly just for show.
Yeah.
And it was great for ratings because Tony TV became a thing. I think he had more cachet. I think with Matheny, I think he was new at it, and we knew him as a player, and he wanted to draw that line, and I think it was awkward and not great. And I think Mike would or probably did handle it differently in Kansas City. Um, Schulte was great with us, and Ollie's great. I mean, the media in St. Louis is lucky to have managers that are available that you could pull aside and talk to.
Because that's a huge part of the job now, right? Even, before LaRussa and those, I mean, obviously Whitey talks to the media and everything like that, but like you said, when you've got the cameras on you every day after a game, win or lose, you've got to know how to deal with that, and I think that's and the all the other things that go along with the media these days is a lot different than it was 20, 30 years ago.
I mean, like Ollie does, like he talks to the broadcasters, and then he'll talk to the writers, and then he goes and talks to TV, and then he'll probably circle back to someone that had another question. It was that same way with Schulte. I mean, that is a big part of it that I think a lot of guys might not understand. If you're coming, fresh into it as a player, you got to get used to it because as a player, you set the rules, or maybe you didn't go into the clubhouse if you didn't want to talk. If you're a manager, there are demands, and you have to navigate it because if things aren't going well, it can be a little tricky at times.
Yeah, yeah, you're right. You can't go hide in the office, and expect to expect to have that be your office for very long, I guess. So, um, going through this year, maybe and maybe last year, if you want to look at it, there have been, like we've talked about, rough spots. How did you approach those when you're looking at stories you want to tell, people you want to talk to before the show, before the game, especially? Did it affect how you went about things?
Well, I can't remember feeling this way in the past, but there were times I was like, please be a roster move, please be a roster move, because then you have something to talk about. Because,
Mm,
to be honest, how many times can you talk about how Siani gets a great break on the
yeah.
ball and or how Mason Wynn is kind of monkeyed with his swing to um, to handle two strike pitches and also have power on the inside part of the plate. So it was tough, and when the team's not winning, you're not going to try to sugarcoat things, but you do
Mhm.
still want to try to find things that are interesting and things that may be going well. And it was tough at times last year. So yeah, when I heard okay, and every day it seemed like there was a roster move. Okay, there were two roster moves. All right, that'll cover me for at least part of it today.
Yeah. Yeah. And you're right. I can imagine it is difficult. Yeah, to ask the same thing all the time. Do you approach it not only in the let's get information out there, but let's let these guys show the personality that maybe fans don't get to see very often?
I kind of feel like that's my job. Look,
Mhm.
there there's a lot of better broadcasters than me, and I think that there's people focus on different things. For me, I kind of look at it as my job is to let fans know who these guys are and make the players at ease enough. Well, they'll show that personality, even for the young guys, where it might be a little bit more difficult for them.
You and Danny Mac were a team for a long, long time. Um, how has the transition been for you to Chip? And I mean, and is it still in the feeling each other out type of stage, or are y'all kind of getting on the same
Same
page?
page. Well, first, Danny's my friend, and
Mhm.
we still keep in touch, and he's doing better. He's doing pretty good.
Good. Good.
But I will say this about Chip Carey. Um, he was replacing a guy who had been the soundtrack for Cardinals baseball.
Mhm.
And I don't think you could have done a better job than he did. And, doing it his own way and, doing his homework and he's obviously a polished broadcaster with a great resume. But also, this guy came in and wanted everyone to feel comfortable and wanted. I mean, this guy is the ultimate team guy, and he wants to put everyone in a position to succeed. And I'm not just saying that. Like, not everyone is going to be that way. Chip Carey came in and was one of the few guys who could pull off what he did, after following Danny Mack. And I give him all the credit in the world, because all he wanted was for everyone to have fun. He's because it's a long season, so he'll do stuff so everyone's having fun. And again, he said it's not about me; it's about all of us. And he really operates in that fashion. And I can't say enough about him.
Yeah, I know there was hesitation when he was hired, but I haven't heard a lot of that since then. I mean, and again, I haven't had a chance to listen to him as often as I would like to, but it seems like he's kind of settled in. It's still a voice because we knew it from other places that is a little bit hard to reconcile to Cardinal baseball because we've heard him with the Cubs and Braves and the family has always been in those places too. But I think he's getting there, right? I
And
mean,
Danny Mack was so good. I mean, he
right.
was so good. It's just a tough spot, but
Mhm.
Chip embraced it, and he made it work. And hats off to that guy.
Yeah, yeah, and having the connections that he did to St. Louis, I'm sure it helped. But he had to do a lot of hard work to get there. So like you said, teams coming back except for one guy. And Jim Edmonds has been in the news quite a bit
Oh, I
this
hadn't
week.
heard. I hadn't heard.
Yeah, I'm picking this up so here and there. I'm not sure if you'd seen it. Um, when you heard him in his interview, did it surprise you, what he was saying?
So I got text. I didn't hear it, and then
Mhm,
I just read quotes off Twitter that TMA they're on FM now. That's the show
mhm,
I started,
mhm.
and they made it to FM without me. But good for those guys, because they're all good guys. But I started getting texts on my phone like, "Are you hearing this?" And I wasn't in a spot where I could tune in anyway. But I read some of the stuff, and look, I'll say this: like, Jimmy was a great teammate for us. To me, he's a Hall of Fame center fielder. He was great to work with. He was fun. Never big timed us. Always a good guy. And he sees stuff on the field that no one else sees, and that goes for players that are on the field. He's that good. Okay, but his perspective is different than mine when he talked about this inner circle or never feeling welcome. He's a red jacket guy. I'm the sideline guy. So if there's a totem pole, he's at the top and I'm not even on it,
Mhm,
So it's a different perspective. So I just know I don't see an inner circle. And I see, John Jay wanting to come back and Descalso wanting to come back. We just see it differently. I do think there used to be some of that, it's my way or the highway. I don't need these guys around. I don't think Ollie's like that. Certainly Schulte respected the whole, Cardinals organization and, the Cardinal way and the history of it.
mhm,
So I didn't see that. And the only thing I really took exception to is, I don't know what Jimmy's experience was with things being chaotic, but to talk about replays not happening. Our guys in the truck. I mean, I'm a
mhm,
rank amateur compared to the guys we have in the truck. Those guys are state of the art, and we're talking
mhm,
about microphones not working. I can't even comment because those guys are better at their jobs than I am at mine, and so I didn't see that. But overall, I'm sad to see Jimmy go. I know he's moving to Nashville, but great teammate and fun to have around. And he carved out his own niche as a broadcaster.
yeah, yeah, and you're right, I still remember the time when I got a chance to go see the truck back in it was 2010 now, first time you and I got a chance to talk as well, but to be able to see what they did, and it wasn't even during the game, it was just getting ready for it and everything is is pretty impressive. I can't imagine how they keep it all in their heads to do that. So, and I don't think, and again, like I said, I haven't seen the broadcast in a little bit, but I don't think there's not been any talk about that kind of, anything about the really production values. I don't think over the last couple of years.
Live TV happens. Like
Mhm.
I see it on networks. Things go wrong. I mean, there's a million people involved. Things go wrong, but I would say ours is a pretty. I mean, except for what I do, everything else is pretty solid. And I just know that the guys we have in the truck that push the buttons and call the different camera shots, they're really good, and they've been there a long time, and they know what they're doing.
I know you have done the pre and post game. Um, I can't remember if you have in the last year or so. If you've that's something you've still done
Yeah, I do
when
it a
you're
little
not.
bit.
That's okay. I thought you did. Um, what do you are those easier days for you? Are they harder days for you?
Just different. Just
Just
different.
different.
I don't like being I don't like the pre and post because you're cooped up, and
Mhm.
I like talking to the players, and if there's debut going and talking to the parents, that's to me
Mhm.
that's more fun. I don't love the travel. I mean, travel with the team, so it's all first class, nothing about that, But I got a kid, and I miss my home and my family. That's the tough part. But given a choice, I like sideline. I think I'm better suited for it. But it's a nice break once in a while to be in studio too and do the pre and post, and then you get to chat for a half hour with Al or Ricky or who's ever in there, and those guys are knowledgeable. Those guys are a big part of it too.
Yeah, and been around for a long time. I mean, especially Al. So,
Al should Al
um,
should Al should get a red jacket.
that was an interesting thought, and I think probably right given what we have seen and how they have approached that. And yeah, that makes a lot of sense to me.
Just he's done so much for the organization after his playing days. He he does speaking engagements. He does a lot of stuff. He's done as much for the organization as he did in the limited time. He was pouting on the mound and throwing a hissy fit as a closer, which was fun to
Yeah.
watch and everything
Mhm.
back in the day. But he's been an organization guy for a long time. I'd like to see that recognized.
Yep. Yeah. I've even just sitting here. I can right next to me is the old Hungo bobbleheads sitting. So
I
it
thought we were going to be on video, so I had set up. I'm in a guest room that used to be
Mhm.
during the pandemic where I do interviews and stuff, and I had a nice baseball background that my wife made me take down, so now it's plain. So when I do these interviews with video, I try to grab a prop, and so I grabbed a
Mhm.
Tony La Russa bobblehead to
Ah.
have with me. So it's here, and he's looking at me like he thinks I'm an idiot, but that's the normal look that he would give me.
I mean, it has to be accurate. It has to be legitimate.
The
So,
the Tony
and
La
every
Russa one is actually pretty good. It looks like him. It looks a little like him. Some of
yeah,
them they don't really look like the player they're supposed to be.
yeah. I mean, it's a hard thing to do. I know we saw. I think the Cardinals put out a thing last year where they showed large new bar going through the whole process of helping design his bobblehead. But even then, I don't think it quite captured
No,
Lars. Not that you can. I think if you're talking about personalities on this team, Lars Newbar is right up there with anybody else.
he's great. And look, it's a big year for him. And I said this on Twitter too. I think how the Cardinals fare will come down to Gorman, right, and Walker
Hmm.
hitting. I
Yeah.
mean, they got to find it again. Now, people like, of course, come in for the kill. What about pitching? Pitching's important too, but I look at the rotation last year, and they were sort of middle of the pack, kind of okay. And I think they have the makings of a rotation that can be okay again. Like not going to lead the league in much, but can keep in games. And I think the bullpen is going to be very stout this year. I like what they have coming back in the bullpen. They lost Kittredge, but I still think they have a lot of pieces that are viable. So to me, if they can score runs in bunches, like Walker catches fire, Gorman catches fire, Donnie does what he does, Lars puts it all together and stays healthy. I think they can be competitive. I'm not saying they're going to win the World Series or they're going to, this or that. I'm just saying they could put together some exciting baseball. But those guys have to hit. I know it's an if,
Mhm.
but I think it's in there because we've seen it.
I see you looking at me. Hey loves, Haley Steinfeld here. Let's be real. When I'm on the red carpet, everyone wants to know whose dress I'm wearing. But here's the thing. We're so focused on those details, we're missing something that's actually way more important. Breast health. It's wild. Breasts get so much attention, but they're still so ignored when it matters most. Don't know what I'm talking about? Tune in on February 9th and visit yourattentionplease.com. That's yourattentionplease.com. See you then.
Yeah, and I think that's the thing that, at least for me and for others that we've talked to, it is that lineup has some significant potential. And it is one of those things. Hopefully, they can score more runs than maybe the rotation gives up. And um, yeah, I mean, I think winning baseball is definitely a possibility. Like you said, division wild card, who knows? But I think if you're looking, I don't think there's any way they can't should think that they couldn't do 83 wins again, which I get is not what Cardinal fans are used to, but it's still winning baseball, and it's a step closer to what this team hopefully will be in the future.
And also, you find out what you have going
Right.
forward with Heim taking over, which is important. But, prediction wise, like, I don't even know who's going where at this point. And you can read stuff, and this is going to happen. I don't believe any of it until I see it on the field at spring training because a lot of things happen along the way. One thing I did want to say, too, because I always I used to have a radio show, and then I destroyed it apparently, and now 590 doesn't have local shows, so I put that on me.
Mhm.
But there's certain things I'll put it out on Twitter, but I don't want to come off like I'm trying to change anyone's mind. But I want to say
Mhm.
something about Arenado. I think he's gone. I don't know where, but from what I hear, um, he'll move as much as he can off what he had previously wanted to try to make it happen. But
Mhm.
and if he's not, that's fine too. Because here's what I want to say about him. I know he took a lot of heat for having a bad year, and it seemed at times, like he didn't have the fire. I just want to say that I'm there early, and Nolan is hitting early, sometimes before anyone. I mean, this guy walks around with the bat in his hands. Now, is he
Mhm.
going to give the speech in the locker room? No, that's not his deal, right? He's not. But this guy was a total professional. And he came here, already labeled a superstar, he already had his credentials in order, and he was easy to deal with, good guy, and and gave it his best shot to be Nolan Arenado. Didn't
Mhm.
work out last year. He's young enough where obviously he can turn it around. I think he probably will, but the stuff about him not caring or wanting out, I'm just saying this guy was a total pro in my opinion, and I'm around that ballpark a lot.
Yeah, and I think we've seen that he wants to be in St. Louis, or at least has wanted to be in St. Louis. I mean, if nothing else, I mean, look, I mean, we were all, I think, fairly surprised that he took turned down the Astros trade, right? A team that was likely could be to have more success than the Cardinals are going to have this year. Um, but I think I mean, and you can correct me if I'm wrong because it happens a lot. Um, it feels like that's he worked his way to get here, and he's not necessarily in a big rush to leave. Now, like you said, if the front office continues to say these kind of things, it makes it a little easier probably for him to uproot. But I think given his choice, I think he would rather stay here.
I think he'd be fine with the right landing spot too, because
Hmm.
haven't talked to him, I'm not putting word, but I think the right landing spot because I don't think
Right.
he wants to go somewhere and then want to go somewhere else. I think he will. I think he wants to put down some roots and try to win a World Series. Obviously, he wants to go to a team that has a shot at that. So we'll see. But I can promise you this: if he's still in St. Louis and opening day he's at third base, he'll be the same guy. He's a total pro.
Yeah. And a non-zero chance he's the best offensive player on the field too. I mean, he may not be, but he could be.
Could be, and if
I
he's
mean,
not there, and Goldie not being there, that's my
mhm,
biggest concern. Aside from, will they hit enough to stay in
mhm,
games? Was, we got spoiled a little bit with the
yeah,
defense at the corners, and
yeah,
I just sometimes picture balls just bouncing away from guys that we haven't really
mhm,
seen. Even though I think Goldie probably wasn't at his total best. I'm not Goldie, Arenado defensively at times. He's banged up a little bit. But what we saw from those two, I mean, that's a huge leap from, I think, most other ball clubs in terms of defense at the corners.
oh, absolutely. Because I mean, you can watch a Nolan Arenado highlight reel at third, just completely all of defense, and there's not a lot of players you can say that about. And some of the plays that we've seen over the last 4 years have been not only just amazingly athletic plays, but some incredibly intellectual plays too of moves that nobody would have thought. It was well, a lot like what Yadier Molina was catching, right? I mean, you saw things that nobody else would try or nobody else would think of, and they knew enough or had enough confidence that they got it done.
Yep, we've seen some really good defense. Now we've seen some defense
Mhm.
from other areas not so great,
Right.
but and when we talk about third baseman, we always talk about Roland, Schmidt,
Mhm.
Brooks Robinson, Arenado. I always throw in Greg Nettles because he's the guy
Yeah,
I grew up watching as a
yeah,
Yankee fan in New York. Greg Nettles,
yeah,
not Craig, not Craig. Greg, Graig.
yeah. Uh, yeah, that's not a name that gets brought up quite as often, but you're right. I mean, that's those kind of players make an impact on you, especially at that age, I would guess.
No question. And if you don't think that Nolan, like, has total command, like he's the boss. When we had that run of people getting doused post game,
Mhm.
including myself, they started to make a run at Nolan, and Nolan put up a hand, gave him the stop sign, and they went and got somebody else.
Yeah. Yeah, he had the gravitas
Yeah.
to stop them in their tracks. Yeah, I remember that. Um, so have you been surprised how quiet this winter has been? The very we saw some people walk away. We've seen some very minor moves, but basically nothing has happened. And I know going into this winter and talking about resets or everything like that, thought it would be at least somewhat active. It's been very, very quiet.
So, yeah, I've never experienced anything like this, and I am surprised. But I guess when they talked about younger guys getting a long runway,
Mhm,
that's what we're going to see. And I look, if you're not going to try to turn it around by making this move and that move, the fix, the rebuild in the minor league system, which was a problem. I had heard about it for a couple of years in terms of other teams having this and that at the minor league level that the Cardinals, who used to kind of lead the way on that stuff, didn't. I think it's smart to address that. And if this is it for Mo, which it is, and Chaim is going to take over, I can understand why they're going to say, look, we've got some talent and we're going to see what it is. Because let's be honest, there's a bunch of talented players that got away from the Cardinals, so
yeah,
they're going to see what these guys can do. And someone like Walker, someone like Gorman, we're not just talking about a guy who he has a potential somewhere of maybe starting. These guys have the potential to be real big impact players. And we saw the makings of it, and then it sort of disappeared. And I blame coaching, whatever. I don't really know. But and I hadn't talked to Gorman, but I had talked to Walker. I just have a feeling that Walker feels like he's on the right path. He talked to the new hitting coach, and
mhm,
basically he said to me, they're working with him and gave him some tips, but basically they're trying not to suffocate him with too
mhm.
much because they know he can hit, and they're going to let him do that.
Yeah, I mean, there's no reason to go overboard if you can do a tweak here and there, and hopefully that makes makes the impact that you're looking for, and instead of loading the kid down with homework, if you
Yeah,
will.
there's a difference
Um,
between trying to re-engineer someone's swing
mhm.
and someone saying, "Get your hands up." That's what they were saying. Is get your hands away from your body a little bit, or wherever the hand position is. Minor fixes like that happen all the time, but he feels like he's ready to go. And you know, uh, with all the stuff they've ruined him, he's a young guy, so
Yeah.
the up and down, which I'm sure was uncomfortable, and he's handled it well. I don't think it's going to leave scars on him as a player.
Well, hopefully not. And you're right. I mean, he may have been the most animated person that I saw clips of from winter warm up, about the changes and about things that he was looking forward to getting to do, and hopefully that translates, and hopefully it translates early. I think, um, especially and probably for him, Gorman, and probably any of them, if they get off to a slow start, there's going to be that idea of here we go again, right? And
Right.
and I think they need that positive reinforcement to say, oh, hey, this works. Even if they go into a slump later, they're more likely to work themselves out of it.
Good starts are important. Now, if you got a runway, though, you're going to have space to. You got to realize that because I had a first week
Mhm.
that was awful. I'm going to have another week and another week after that for some of these guys. That's what they call the runway, I guess.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, that seems to be the case. And hopefully that kind of, confidence helps. And we'll see how long that runway is. And hopefully nobody needs it all. So it won't matter. Um, if Nolan Arenado is still here, which I think again, until he's gone, he is. Um, this roster gets a little bit crowded, um, and we might see people like Victor Scott II or Thomas JC in Memphis instead of in the big leagues. Um, is that detrimental to them, or do you think that's fine?
In terms of their development, I think it's fine. To be honest with you, a guy like Sajasi, I want to see. Victor Scott II showed a lot. Didn't hit as much as he'd like, but had a little hot streak, and we saw he has speed to burn. I kind of like watching those guys. I wouldn't mind seeing more of it, but I don't think um, another year of AAA is going to stunt their growth. There's
Mhm.
guys who know better than me the proper track for players to be on, but I think each player kind of follows their own path and they kind of deal with what they have to deal with. But I think those are two of the guys I would be excited to see if there was spots for them.
I've talked. I know some of us have talked in the past about what the team would be like as a culture with guys like Mason Wynn and Jordan Walker and Victor Scott and Lars Nootbaar, some vibrant personalities. Um, would that be as much of a change as it looks like it would be from the outside looking in? And is there anybody that you would put in that group as well?
So I would say yes, those guys bring energy, and it's something the Cardinals need. Look, when you're not winning, it's hard to be fun and show a ton of energy. Let me see who. Listen, there's a bunch of guys on that team, and not just young guys that are good
Mhm.
personalities. Now, Miles doesn't pitch very well, but he still may be the best interview on the team because he always has something funny or maybe even unexpected to say. I think Burleson can be a real character. I know he had a rough second half, but there's a bunch of guys, and Sonny Gray I find fascinating because you can ask a question, and he'll go on for a while and take in directions I never anticipated.
Mm.
There's just but the backdrop has to be some winning baseball for everyone. I think to feel free to be themselves, but they do have some personality and certainly some energy on this ball club. And Newt's just great, and I give him credit too because he's got to do one wave of media and then the Japanese media and everyone, especially when he was hot and when he came back from the World Baseball Classic,
Yeah.
everyone was after him, and I thought he handled it very well.
I think it would have been very interesting to see you as a guest on Michaelis's Between Two Birds show. I think that would have been quite a matchup. I think that would have been fun to see.
I would love it, and because I just look, I'm not trying to say he's gonna be any different this year. I hope so because he's a really nice guy. But that guy is a funny guy, well spoken guy who you do an interview with him, and it can go, in a million different ways, and it's always fun. And I like guys like
Mhm.
that. There's some guys they're a little nervous still talking. You try to bring them out of your shell, but with Miles, you might as well just hand him the microphone.
Yeah, yeah. I think you it would keep you on your toes a lot for those kind of guys to, you may have some questions you want to ask, but you don't know if you're actually going to get to them.
And another guy too, Ollie's great. Now we go. I get my sound when the broadcasters are in there, and he will he will kill me if he thinks it's a dumb question, and we will go back and forth. Now the final, the whole interview probably doesn't air anywhere. Thankfully, we just pull the sound that's best out of it. But um, he's great to talk to too, and he's pretty candid. Managers have
Mhm.
to strike a balance. But he's another guy that's fun to be around. And look, his job, he knows that there are a lot of Cardinal fans unhappy with him. But he didn't shut off, which I've seen happen before, where managers will just shut out all the media. He never did that. He faced the music. You try to be upbeat as you can, and if you're upbeat, then you're pretending that you're not a terrible team. Sometimes you can't win because winning solves everything. But he's always been open, good or bad, and I appreciate that.
Do you feel like he may feel a little bit of a weight going into this year, not just because the season, has this last couple of years haven't been up to standard, if you will, but more the fact that the front office is going to start to change, and oftentimes a change in the front office means a change in the manager spot as well?
Absolutely, I'm fairly certain he feels the weight on his shoulder, and my guess would be that he would look at this season as an audition to try to keep his job. The last couple seasons haven't gone well. A lot of things I don't think fall under his direction. But if you're not winning, you're the manager, and it's on you. And he understands that, and he's not hiding from it. But he has a chance to take a group of young players and try to put together a competitive team that maybe outperforms the expectations of other people. And my guess is he's excited to get going and see what they can do.
You get a chance to talk to front office people as well, in all sorts of ways, but especially in pregame shows. Um, do you think? Well, first of all, before I get to that, you were one of the few that we actually would see Michael Gersh talk to,
Hmm.
um, and I feel like for the fact that Gersh was here for a long time, we never really got a feel for who he is or what he was doing or anything of that nature. With your interactions with him, what did you take away?
Really smart guy. And, when you're general manager and John Mozeliak's the
Mhm.
president of baseball ops, and you're at the same podium, you're probably not going to get to talk a lot. And that whole thing about what does Gersh do? Gersh does a lot. And things that usually assistant general managers do is his responsibilities for other parts increased as he became general manager. But this was a guy who, first off, his background, he was somewhere in the world of finance or something, and he wanted to get in
Mhm.
baseball. He wrote a treatment on how to value players, sent it to Mazalok, and John said, "All right, I'll hire you, but I can't pay anything, so I'd recommend you not take it." And he took it because he loves baseball. Really smart guy, and as bad as things get, he always has been a good guy to deal with. There's no sour grapes. And what he did as assistant general manager for a long time was he'd marshal the statistical guys, the metrics guys, and scouts and things, and he'd come up with ideas of based on their metrics what players could help them and then orchestrate a deal, reach out to this team who's available, where are you on this guy? How do you like, this guy that we have that we might be able to throw onto the pile for you? And he did, that stuff too as general manager. I think he got a bad deal because there's a couple times you're at a dais, and maybe someone will ask you a question, but you're up there with Mo, and people are going to ask Mo because he's the president of baseball ops. But I think a lot of the media that and Gersh did his share of media with other people besides me. I think they would all say the same thing. He's a smart guy, still with the ball club, smart guy, knows what he's doing, and fair and rational when you talk to him. And he looks like Bill Maher, in my opinion.
There's that too. And I'm glad that they did keep him around. And I think Special Projects is a good place. I think it's going to be very interesting to see what comes out of that Special Projects um, umbrella, if you will, if we ever really find out, if it may be more internal than anything else. But I think that'll be fun.
I know he's
Uh,
working on still doing baseball stuff, but doing it
mhm,
for Heim behind the scenes. And I think at some point after the season, if Gersh wants to stay, because I think this is Gersh's last year on his
mhm.
contract. Gersh and Heim will have a discussion as to what the interest level is. Gersh could do a lot of different things, but he loves baseball, so my guess is he'll still want to do some around baseball. But we'll see what Heim has in mind for him.
Yeah, because the front office is going to change in some form or fashion. Now, this, as you said, last year for Gersh, definitely the last year for John Mozeliak. Um, do you th- how do you think he's going to be in your interactions this year? Is he going to be a little bit more devil may care, or is he still going to be fairly measured?
Uh, I think the weight's off his shoulders, so I wouldn't say devil may care. He knows that the end is approaching for him. But I've known him for a long time. I mean, I used to talk to him when Jockety was around, so I have
Mhm.
a pretty good relationship with him. And a lot of teams with the general manager or president of baseball ops, you don't get to talk to him. And I know some of the media said that Mo wasn't available at the end. So I don't know about that because, he would do stuff for us sometimes. But the availability to ask him quite now, on Twitter and social media, why did you ask him softball? I asked him the questions as as respectfully as I could when things weren't going
Right.
well. I never said you're terrible or tell DeWitt to sell the team or anything like that. So that made me a coward. But I tried to navigate that as respectfully as I could. And I tried to ask him the questions that I thought fans would want to hear the answer to. Now, there are times, he might have, talked around the edges or I don't know, but
Mm.
he's always, willing to talk. And I appreciate that about him.
Have you had a chance to start developing that relationship with Chaim Bloom yet, or do you think that's going to be a situation that's going to wait until he really formally ascends?
My guess is Heim, until it's his, will stay in the background. When they
Mhm.
hired him, he didn't do interviews with anyone, and Heim Bloom got to actually know who I was, and it was a bad first impression for me, which is not unusual. So I had a show called Hot Take Central, which I mentioned earlier. I
Mhm.
apparently destroyed. It's not on anymore. And I was at spring training, and I would do phoners. And what as a mockery of the whole sports talk thing, I would walk
Mhm.
around when players were coming and going onto the field, at spring training, and I would get them to say, "Hi, Hot Take Central," or, "How's the weather?" And I'd tell them, "Put them on the board as a guest. We get the best guests in radio." So we'd have a list of anyone who said, "Hello, Hot Take Central." We'd have, all right, we had 5 guests today. And so I saw Heim Bloom, and I didn't realize he had told all the media, "I'm not talking, to anyone."
Mhm.
Anyway, so I said, "Oh, there's Heim Bloom, one of the newest members of the St. Louis Cardinals. Haim, say hello to Hot Take Central." And he's looking at my phone trying to figure out who am I talking to. And is that the sideline? Like he seemed
Yeah.
confused, and then he finally said, "I go, it's just a bad radio show. We're terrible, and I'm just asking to say hi." And he said, "Hi, Hot Take Central." And then he came and he found me later, and he said, "You will have the only Chaim Bloom quote this entire season," because I already told everyone I'm not talking, and I didn't mean to put him on the spot. I said it was,
Right.
kind of joking around. He got it, and to be honest with you, we were locker room mates at spring training because
Mhm.
his locker was in the back of the building, and where we were doing interviews. Like they put us way in the back when the minor leaguers that haven't reported yet, and that was so we got to talk a little bit there, maybe get to know each other briefly. But he seems like a smart guy, and I'm eager to see what he can do.
Yeah, I think it's gonna be. I mean, he's got a great track record, um, and it's like we've said earlier, the focus on developing in the minor leagues was definitely needed, and I'm looking forward to seeing what he does with that this year, and then how that develops as he moves into the higher position next year.
There's certain guys that I'm just excited. Like I said this on Twitter also, but like, look, would have been smart to trade Helsley, I guess. But to be honest with you, I like I like watching him close games. So I was hoping that he would stay. If Arenado stays and I get to see him make plays at third, that's fun. Would it be good for the long run? I don't know. But there's certain guys and there's I also tweeted about Palante. Like I just think based on what we saw once he came back as a starter and learned better how to attack right-handed hitters, he was just pretty solid in the rotation. I want to see what that
Mhm.
guy can be. There's I want to see what the next step is for Mason Wynn, who by the way is what, 22 years, what is he,
Yeah.
22, 20? This guy's got the maturity of like a 10-year veteran. This guy, and we're just people thought I was crazy when I said he's going to have power. He'll be a 20 homer guy next year, I think. And we're only seeing him getting better and better at shortstop defensively, which he was near, in my opinion, Gold Glove anyway. I'm excited to watch him. I think I had said before before last season, I wouldn't trade that guy pretty much for
Mhm.
anything. Like I just think he's going to be that good.
Yeah, yeah, I've been on the Win bandwagon for quite some time, so, and, even when, Jordan Walker was the new hotness, I still felt like there was something about Mason Wynn that might even be better, so, it's fun to see him develop, and hopefully he will continue to because I feel like, right now, maybe it's him, maybe Brendan Donovan that are the face of this team right now as the young guys going forward.
Those are the two, and they could be joined by Donovan and Walker if those guys hit. That's
Yeah.
the main thing.
Yep, and hitting is important. All right, so you're about to head down to Jupiter. What is something you are looking forward to doing, and who are you looking forward to talking to maybe first?
Let's see. I talked to pretty much every. I guess Wilson Contreras is a guy I didn't have a one-on-one with. I want to
Mhm.
I want to feel him out about playing first base. That guy is. We talked about energy guys. That
Yeah.
guy is an energy guy, no question about it. And I just want to hear what he has to say about playing first. When I heard that they were moving him to first, I thought, all right, maybe this is a ploy. Maybe they want to tick him off because he takes pride in being a solid catcher. And then it wasn't. He's one guy I'm eager to sit down with. I'd like to uh, talk to Miles Michaelis and see what he's going to do differently. Um, I mean, those are the guys that I didn't get a chance to talk to at the winter warm up, and I'd like to hear about that.
Yeah. So 2 last things. One, even though I really shouldn't ask this because the space is getting very, very crowded, um, has there ever been a thought of bringing the Cat Chat podcast back?
So all right, because of our because so I did it on my YouTube. It was
Mhm.
Cat's Corner,
Oh,
and
yeah, yeah.
I threw some on there, so that was like the video version, and I did it in partnership with Bally's. but because they're changing things around, they asked me to wait on that. So I thought this off season I would jump back in. So based, I don't know how to phrase it, but based on not showing what pile that should be thrown on until it's figured out by the people above me. I'm waiting it out, but at some point I do want to make it return. What I want to do for YouTube, which is like a podcast. I don't even know what to
Right.
call it anymore. And now
Mhm.
there's everyone has it, but I'd still like to do one where I talk to players, just me,
Mhm.
and then do one with a couple of media types and try to make it a little different. Like, cause here I like it when people don't agree. And I don't like it when people agree. I like it when they argue. I think it makes it for a more exciting discussion. So I'd like to see, not a fake argument, but where you go after each other a little bit. Like I used to do with Charlie Marlowe on Hot Take Central. I
Yeah,
think that
yeah.
spices it up, and maybe that's something we could do. But I'm hoping it returns. But I'm right now sort of in a holding pattern.
Okay. And I'm sorry I haven't disagreed with you more. Maybe I should have found a way to
Oh, you're
to
very
disagree with
nice.
your stuff. So, and then finally, um, how are you dealing with, being less of sideline reporter and more of Stella's dad?
I'm fine because she's a star. I understand. I understand that people love that dog as they should. If it was video, I was planning to bring her up here.
Oh,
Um, but look, there's times I've walked her and people like yell Stella, like they know her from me posting. And I'm sure there's some. I don't look, but I'm sure I lost followers. Like, who is this idiot posting pictures of his dog? But there's nothing better than dogs. Cats are great
mhm.
too. Don't get me wrong. I love them. But there's some about a dog, and a cute dog that should be on social media. That's my policy, and I'm glad to take a back seat to Stella.
I mean, we have enough rough stuff on social media and everything else. We need more dog pictures.
That's
Except
where it started when things got
yeah,
bad with the Cardinals. And instead of just, posting, we'll get them tomorrow, I was like, time for a puppy pick because I think that lifted everyone's spirits.
yeah. Yes, like I said, I want to see as many pictures of Stella as possible. I just hope that there are reasons other than losses to get them up there.
I'll find a way, even if they win, I promise.
I have no doubt. Jim, it has been a blast as always. I appreciate you joining me and look forward to doing it again sometime.
Always a pleasure, and thanks for having me on.
All right. Well, next week we will have Lynn Worthy from the Post Dispatch going to join us for the first time. So look forward to that. But until then, for Jim, I'm Daniel. Good night.
What's the new phrase that you've come up with to get rid of someone like me?
이제 미디어가 이제 항상 와가지고 이제 클럽하우스에서도 선수들도 귀찮게 하고 이제 많은 질문을 던지고 있는데 이제 짐 같은 이제 리포터를 빨리 쫓아내기 위해서 또 던져줄 문구라든지 이런 게 있다면은 새로운 게 어떤 게 있는지 물어보겠습니다. Hey Jim, go do something.
Hi, everyone. Rich Bray here, and with Wilson Contreras making the move to first base this spring, I thought it'd be fun to look back at another Cardinals catcher who transitioned to an infield role. Heading into the 1990 season, the Cardinals had high hopes for Todd Zeile, who was coming off a AAA campaign in which he hit .289 with 19 homers and 85 RBIs. However, 1990 proved to be a difficult season for both Zeile and the Cardinals. Instead of competing for the NL East crown, St. Louis sank to the bottom of the standings, prompting manager Whitey Herzog to announce his resignation mid-season. As a rookie catcher on a struggling team, Zeile had his share of ups and downs. During the first half of the season, he hit just .227 with inconsistent defense behind the plate. With veteran backup Tom Pagnozzi playing well, interim manager Red Schoendienst began to rest Zeile more frequently, and rumors began to suggest that with Cardinals third baseman Terry Pendleton set to become a free agent after the season, Zeile might be due for a position change. On August 1st, St. Louis Post-Dispatch columnist Dan O'Neill wrote that open season had been declared on the rookie catcher. Quote, load up and take your best shot. The fans are, the broadcasters are, even teammates, O'Neill wrote. Rip him up one side about not blocking the plate, then rip him down the other about leaving runners on base. Talk about leaving him at third base. Talk about playing him in the outfield. Talk about not playing him at all. Talk about a bunch of nonsense. On the same day O'Neill's column was published, the Cardinals announced that Joe Torre would become the team's new manager. Torre, who had transitioned from catcher to third base during his own playing days with the Cardinals, was asked whether Zeal could make a similar move. Quote, "I've heard that he can play there, and if that's the case, I'm going to take a look at him there," Torre said. "If he has the ability to be the offensive player that I've heard, it will further his career." Torre's pronouncement created a stir in St. Louis and unsettled Zeal, who hadn't heard from anyone within the organization that they were considering changing his position. Torre walked his quote back, but the idea continued to gain traction, especially as Pagnozzi continued to play well. In 69 games that season, Pagnozzi hit .277 and played stellar defense, generating 2.1 wins above replacement despite limited playing time. Eventually, Torre talked Zeal into learning third base, though Zeal remained unconvinced. Quote, "What are my options?" Zeal said. "I'm a rookie and they're going to do what they think is best for the team. There's not a lot I can do about it." In August, Zeal began splitting time between catcher and first base, and on September 5th, Zeal made his first start of the season at third, where he played his final 24 games. He finished the season with a .244 batting average and 57 RBIs, and his 25 doubles and 15 homers were the most by a Cardinals rookie since Ken Boyer. The following season, Zeal was the opening day third baseman, while Pagnozzi started at catcher. Zeal would not play catcher again until his final major league season in 2004 with the Mets. Across a 16-year career that was indeed extended by his position change, Zeal hit .265 with 253 homers and 1,110 RBIs. So that's a quick look at how prized catching prospect Todd Zeal became the Cardinals' everyday third baseman. For more Cardinals history, visit stlredbirds.com or follow me on Twitter at Remembirds, REMEMBIRDS. Thanks again, and go Cards.
Widespread stance, arms out over the plate. Bickford from the stretch. The 1-1 pitch. A swing, and there it goes! Left field, way back! That's home run number 700! Pujols hits a 3-run homer, and he hit 699 and 700 at Dodger Stadium on September 23rd, 2022.